What do you teach?
This is the old mud in the eye motif.
What do you teach here? What's the teaching?
Well, at least one point is that this is a foreshadowing of the Messiah himself, who would come
And do the same
thing.
He anointed the blind man's eyes with clay there in John.
I'll re-ask the question. What are we teaching? What does such an episode, what does such an event, what does such a demonstration show?
Seems to me that what we're doing is putting all that is mundane and earthly in front of our ability to see.
And let's wash it off.
And then we're washing it away.
So that you can really see.
And now we have, as you go back to verse 27, the ability to see things that are afar off.
Yes.
And it can't be without significance that you read it immediately in the next verse that he commences this great vision.
Go ahead. 36.
And he beheld the spirits that God had created.
I'm going to interrupt you there. Isn't this interesting? We see this time after time in the Pearl of Great Price that these great prophet leaders, they get this panoramic vision, including in many cases, if not in all, in many cases, what do they see? Like Moses, every person that's ever been created, or like Abraham, all the spirits before. Enoch has that same kind of vision.
And he beheld the spirits that God had created, and he beheld also things which were not visible to the natural eye. And from thenceforth came the saying abroad in the land, a seer hath the Lord raised up unto his people.
And we sustain 15 men today as prophets, seers, and revelators. And I've had students raise their hand and say, now, Brother Miller, does that mean that each of them used the Urim and Thummim, using, I guess, Mosiah 8 definition? Well, I suppose they could if they needed to or wanted to, but this to me is a much broader and grander definition, isn't it? What do you do when you're a seer? You see things not visible to the natural eye, or as we've noted earlier, they see things afar off.
Mm-hmm. And that is in both directions.
Past and
future. We saw the spirits that God had created, and we
see the prophetic picture.
You see the prophetic picture.
Now, is this one of the first visions then that Enoch has? Is this?
It is.
Vision
it
number
is.
one?
We won't even be able to get into all the visions he has in 7, for example. We'll just be able to tiptoe. But this is one of them, if not the first.
And what's the result? He goes out and teaches this. In verse 37 it says, all men were offended because of him.
Yes. Would we suppose otherwise?
And that again is a similitude of Christ.
Yep. Mm-hmm. 38, Andrew.
And they came forth to hear him upon the high places, saying unto the tent keepers, Tarry ye here and keep the tents, while we go yonder to behold the seer, for he prophesieth. And there is a strange thing in the land, a wild man hath come among us.
Is that beautiful?
Again, name calling. They can't attack his doctrine, so what do they do?
And
They
we
have to
see it in
attack him.
Korihor, too. You denounce the sanity of the righteous by calling them fanatics, or calling them wild, or weird, or whatever.
Sounds like our teacher-student evaluations.
That's right. The wild man is among us.
It's the frenzied mind comes,
We can't cover all of this, but notice, turn your page over, and notice the kinds of things that Enoch begins to teach, the teachings of the prophet seer. Look at verse 46. I'm cutting into the middle of the dialogue here, but for a book of remembrance we have written among us, according to the pattern given by the finger of God, and it is given in our own language. And as Enoch spake forth the words of God, the people trembled and could not stand in his presence. And notice this. And he said unto them, because that Adam fell, we are. Well, this would be one of the earliest statements of that doctrine, the doctrine that Lehi will later pick up on in teaching Jacob, isn't it? Presumably, in fact, as we've said in earlier presentations, it may well be that the Joseph Smith translation of the Bible represents one of our best approximations to knowing what was on those brass plates. Lehi seems to be drawing upon a record in the brass plates that is drawing upon this same doctrine. Adam fell that men might be.
Well, it seems to me no matter whether we're talking about Enoch or Adam or others, we get drawn right back to the three pillars of eternity, the creation, the fall, and the atonement. Those things are repeated time and time and time again. And perhaps they are so because maybe they're the least understood of the doctrines.
Now notice, from 51 through 68, which we discussed in another roundtable discussion, we have the teachings of Enoch. describing what we call the revelation of the gospel to Adam. And so these are Enoch's teachings.
Pre-existence as well.
That's right.
In 51.
That's right. So we'll hold that conversation. We could talk a great deal about the teachings of Enoch, but we've already covered that.
Could I just summarize, then, what I think we have said here? It seems to me we've said that the lessons that come out of Enoch's call, his preparation of call, are these. Number one, God initiates the call. That's verses 26 and 27. The call is to preach repentance because society is a mess. Verse 28. Enoch has some weakness. Verse 31. Power is not predicated on personal eloquence or on popularity. God qualifies whom he chooses. Divine investiture of authority. Enoch is called to be a seer. God defines seer. Enoch is a type. He's a foreshadowing and a similitude of Christ. We've seen Satan's tactics to denounce God's words. We've seen that cut across dispensations. And as you point out in the last part, particularly in verse 52 and so on, we see Enoch preaching Christ. So, we get a lot of stuff there.
Pretty good doctrine from Enoch, right?
And going back to where you began, not a word of that will be found in the Old Testament text.
I mean, why did we begin the way we did? We began by reading what we know from the Bible, which I suppose, if we hadn't commented on, like long-winded people do, we could have read all that we know about Enoch from the Old and New Testaments in about
2 minutes.
2 minutes, maybe?
Wouldn't take that.
Not even that much. Now, what we have restored to us through Joseph Smith is well over 100 verses about Enoch. Okay? Turn to chapter 7. Let's talk just a moment about one of the challenges of a prophet. You know, it occurs to me that one of the challenges that a prophet must have is seeing what he has seen, knowing what he has known, and knowing what he knows, to then deal with the people who refuse to see and who refuse to know. In chapter 7, let's pick up with about verse 24. What I think is one of the most poignant scenes in all the Pearl of Great Price. Richard, would you start reading for us in verse 24?
And there came generation upon generation, and Enoch was high and lifted up, even in the bosom of the Father and of the Son of Man. And behold, the power of Satan was upon all the face of the earth. And he saw angels descending out of heaven, and he heard a loud voice saying, Woe, woe unto the inhabitants of the earth. And he beheld Satan, and he had a great chain in his hand, and it veiled the whole face of the earth with darkness. And he looked up and laughed, and his angels rejoiced.
There couldn't be a more chilling visual than that one right there.
Yeah, Satan really has got a hold of this generation. I mean, it might just go back and hearken to the problem. This isn't just general wickedness. This is taking wickedness to a new low, if you will, in that it is organized, but it is organized in such a way that the organizers have actually become the lawmakers within the society itself, and therefore the society is being dragged down with very little chance of it being able to right itself and bless the people.
The Book of Mormon writers, Mormon will often say they were in such great wickedness. They did not dwindle in unbelief.
Yeah.
They're going by the most direct route, willfully. They know what they're doing.